Hi, I'm Donna Cornell, and today I want to talk to you about job searching in pandemic times. I do not know what the future is going to bring, but what I do know is how to help you get a job during these really tough times. So you're probably saying, why me? Why am I giving you advice? Well, let me tell you why. First of all, I've been in the recruiting and placement industry for 2 decades. And during that time, built an organization to have 8 offices in 4 states. And in the industry, our industry, headhunting, recruiting, there are ratios, there are measurements as to how well somebody's doing. In the industry, it's 6-to-1, meaning that most people need to send out 6 candidates on an interview to get 1 hire. In our organization, it was 2-to-1. So we know what we're doing. There's lots of secrets and there's lots of strategies, and I'm going to share those with you. The coaching and tutoring that we did helped those candidates, and now you're going to benefit from all of that. The pandemic has changed so much. There's 25 million, 30 million, 35 million people out of work. You're going to have a lot to compete with. You're going to need some new strategies, some new techniques, some new ways about interviewing and even putting together the resume. That's going to have to be different. If you're furloughed, please don't just sit back and say, well, I'm furloughed, I'm going to get hired again. No, you may be. And if you go to work now and find other opportunities, the worst thing that will happen, your current or prior boss will call you up, offer the job back, and you'll decide whether to take that or the new thing that you uncovered. It'll be much better. So consider yourself out of work, actively looking for a job. Now I'm going to tell you about an empty room. I'm in an empty room today. Generally, when I do a conference or a workshop, there's lots of people. But this is the time of COVID and the pandemic. So I'm doing this now because I didn't want to delay and wait till I could get a big audience to share all this with you. No, I wanted to get this information to you as quickly as possible. So I'm recording in an empty room. I hope that I hear the applause from you in your heart. Let me tell you what's coming up in this series. We're going to talk about resumes, not in detail with this line should be that, but more the conceptual idea of a resume. What should be in it? The resume has to be the first document that tells somebody, why should they hire you? Why should they give you a paycheck? What sets you apart from the other 1,000 people they may get? The second part that we're going to talk about is your campaign. Strange word to use about job searching, right? Politicians campaign all the time. And what are they doing? They're looking for your vote. It's the same kind of thing that you're going to be doing. You're going to be looking for someone to vote for you to be the person to be hired. In this series, I'm going to cover the impact this pandemic has had on the employment market overall. I'm going to help you identify ways that you too may have been impacted. I will share with you how to structure your resume and make it a real campaign tool, your first introduction to a prospective employer. And I'm going to give you strategies on how to ace an interview, whether it's in person or the new one, the video interview. Who are you today? The world has changed, life has changed, you've changed. And you need to think about what you want in the future. Perhaps the job that you had is not the one you should be going back to. Perhaps it's time to think about changing your career, changing what you do for a living. You know, I always tell people, if you have employment and you are doing something that you like and you are making enough, and it's your definition of enough, then you are a winner. You have aced life. A lot of people go to work and they do something they don't like for years. Well, maybe now's the time to rethink and revisit. What are you doing for your career? Should you be doing something else? Think about your mindset today. Instead of the sports results or fantasy football or Home Shopping Network or the Food Network, you're dealing with media that gives you grim news, deaths every day, scary, gloomy statistics. How has that changed you? Think about the energy you were going to put forth in your new job. Do you want it to go into something that you really want or just the same old thing? At the end of this series, I will have some questionnaires, and inserted in between, I will have some things, some questions you need to ask yourself to really identify, hey, am I doing the right thing here? I'm on the job market. I'm going to spend many, many hours exploring opportunities. Am I doing it right? Is this the time? So there's time for thought-provoking ideas. It's time for you to do some self-introspection. Now, I have an insert coming up that's going to talk about your ideas of what the best job will offer. It's a long list. You'll see it. And these are the kinds of questions you should be asking yourself. I hope you have paper and pencil to be writing down these questions. And if not, rewind the video and look them over. These are the things you need to be exploring with you to make sure that you're on the right track. You've done the same job for years, let's say, or perhaps you're just beginning. But if you've done the same job for years, you have to identify what are your transferable skills. What's a transferable skill? It's something that you've learned to do, something you do pretty well, but you've only done it in one industry. Well, now's the time to explore another industry. Now's the time to explore, what else can I do with this talent I have, with this knowledge I have? Your resume should be what's called a skill-based resume. I'll help you with that later, but the first thing you need to do is really be identifying your talents, your skills. What do you do? What do you do well? What do you want to do? And it doesn't have to be in isolation. You do not need to be sitting there yourself struggling with this. This is the time to sit down with a friend, a coworker, a former boss, even a family member. How would you describe me? What do you think I'm good at? How would you put down, what reference would you give me? What are some of the qualities that you see that I have? And then you write them down so you have the basis for creating why you. What's your campaign? Here's the question again. Why should somebody hire you? Why should they hire you over the thousands of other candidates that are out there? I often counsel people to think about what makes them an MVP, a most valuable player. What sets you apart? You know, that's part of your campaign. I mentioned about the campaign to get votes. Well, there's a military campaign too. There's a military campaign to go out and accomplish something. Well, that's what you're going to do. You're going to have this campaign to go accomplish something, and that is getting the job that you want. So next we're going to talk about the resume. Remember, this is your document that opens the campaign. This is your campaign literature, your first piece of campaign literature. The thing you want to do is to create a document that tells them not every task and duty that you've had in your life, but what do you bring to the table? Again, why you? What talents do you have? What interpersonal skills do you have? What can you offer to a new employer? Yeah, you have to tell them all about your experience, but what else about you? My resume preferences are a skill-based resume. That's where you tell them everything about the skills that you have, the talents that you have, and you list it. And then they know who and what you are. I do not like a chronological work resume where you just list every job you ever had and every duty you ever had. Boring. Also, your resume has to be very clear, basic fonts, no artwork, no pictures, no photos. It has to be able to be easily downloaded or scanned in. And you know who's going to see it first? A robot. Yeah, a robot. Applicant tracking systems. Almost everybody's using them. This is a software where a robot reads your resume, and he or she robot, identifies the buzzwords in your resume with the buzzwords of the job opening. And they match them. And if it's good, and they think it's a good match, they refer it on to a human who's going to look at it and hopefully invite you in for an interview. So the resume, nothing fancy, just plain, basic, and understand that you need to get past the robot to get to the human.